I don't usually talk about this. I mean, what happened? I've never really sat down and told the whole story to anyone, because honestly, I wasn't even sure anyone would believe me. I'm 55 years old. I was born in the United Kingdom, but about 20 years ago, I moved to America. I've been living in Virginia ever since. I'm not the kind of guy who scares easily. Never have been. I carry a pistol when I hike in bear country. I go hiking alone. I've spent so many nights alone in the woods that darkness stopped meaning anything to me a long time ago. But last October, something happened that I still can't get out of my head. It was a 3-day solo hike, a section of the Appalachian Trail in Virginia. I'd hiked parts of this trail before. I knew the area pretty well. The first day was actually beautiful. Cool air, clear views for miles, and the whole trail was dead quiet. But on the second day, everything started to change. Around 2 p.m., the trail started getting narrower. The trees got thicker. That's when I started hearing footsteps behind me. Not constant, just every few minutes, like someone was walking with me. I told myself it was a deer, obviously. You hear all kinds of sounds in the woods, but here's the thing about deer. When you stop, they keep going. These footsteps stopped every single time I stopped. Dead silence. Like whatever was behind me already knew what I was going to do. I picked up my pace. Around 5 p.m., I saw blood on the trail. Not a lot, just some drops leading off to the right into the bushes. A little further ahead, I saw the remains of some small animal. I couldn't even tell what it was. It wasn't killed clean. It looked like something had torn it apart. I didn't stop, didn't get closer. I just kept walking. Around 6:30 p.m., I found a campsite, rocky ground. There was a big boulder to the north. I set up my tent right behind it, pressed against the rock so it couldn't be seen from the trail. I told myself I was being smart, staying out of the wind. At least, that's what I thought. I kept the fire small, ate quick. Before sleeping, I put my pistol inside the sleeping bag, right next to my hand. I fell asleep around 10 p.m., faster than I expected. At 2 a.m., my eyes snapped open. It was pitch black inside the tent, but right outside, I could hear breathing. Heavy, slow, like something was sitting just 2 feet from my face, with only the thin tent fabric between us. I didn't move. The breathing continued. Steady rhythm. I told myself it was a black bear. They come around campsites sometimes. Just stay quiet. It'll leave. But then the breathing slowed down, and the shadow outside the tent slowly stood up on 2 legs. Then a hand pressed against the fabric and started sliding across it. My hand tightened on the pistol. Then the zipper on the tent door started moving, very slowly, very deliberately, like whoever was out there had done this before, like they knew exactly how to open a tent without making noise. The flap opened. I turned on my flashlight instantly. I don't know how to explain this without sounding crazy. It was huge, 6'4", maybe taller, covered in dirt, matted hair. It had animal skins tied around its body, and its eyes, when the light hit them, they reflected back like a cat's. Its mouth was open, and I saw it had no tongue. The sound that came out of its throat wasn't human. I fired 2 shots. Not at it, above it, toward the trees. The sound was deafening in that small space. It screamed. And that scream wasn't human either. It was high, broken, and so wrong that it hit some ancient part of your brain that just says, run. It stumbled back, dropped to all fours, and took off into the darkness. Gone in 3 seconds. Then there was just silence. I grabbed my pistol and ran. I ran mostly on memory. I kept moving until I couldn't run anymore. Then I walked fast until the sun came up. Eventually, I made it out of the woods and found a small gas station. The people there helped me. I got to the nearest ranger station. One local ranger just looked at me and said, There have been reports of people like that living in these woods for years. Best to stay as far away from that area as possible. I made it home alive, but even now, when I'm walking alone on a quiet trail or a wooded road, it feels like something is standing right behind me, and I don't have the courage to turn around and look. My name's Gerald. I'm 52 years old. For the last 8 years, I've been hiking the Appalachian Trail, one section at a time, mostly by myself. My wife, she thinks I'm completely insane. My kids do too, but there's just something about being alone out there in those mountains. It's hard to explain, unless you've done it yourself. The silence, the simplicity, just you and the trail. Honestly, I never felt afraid out there, not once, until last September. Everything changed. I'd been hiking for 6 straight days when I finally reached Shelter 847. If you've never seen one of those shelters before, they're pretty simple. Just a small wooden structure, 3 walls, a roof overhead, and the entire front completely open, facing the forest. They're scattered all along the trail. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep you out of the rain. I got there around 7 that evening. No one else was there, just me. I cooked a quick dinner, started a small campfire outside, and by around 9, I was exhausted. I crawled into my sleeping bag, closed my eyes, and fell asleep within minutes. Around 11, I woke up. I heard footsteps coming down the trail. I opened my eyes. Through the trees, I saw the beam of a headlamp moving toward the shelter. A man was walking straight toward me. He looked like he was maybe late 40s, average height, average build, just normal hiking clothes. Nothing unusual. He told me he'd gotten turned around on a side trail, and spotting the shelter was a huge relief. Honestly, he seemed completely normal. We'd sat by the dying fire for maybe 20 minutes, just talking. Nothing strange, trail conditions, the weather, the usual stuff 2 hikers talk about when they meet out there. He was a little quiet, but nothing about him made me suspicious. Around midnight, we both went to sleep. He stayed on one side of the shelter. I took the other. A few minutes later, I was out again. I don't know what woke me up the second time. There wasn't a sound, no footsteps, no movement, just that feeling. You know the one. When you wake up, and before your eyes even open, your brain is already telling you something is terribly wrong. I slowly opened my eyes, and he was right there, leaning over me. His face couldn't have been more than 8 inches from mine. One finger was resting lightly against my cheek. He was touching the sweat on my face, just feeling it. His expression was completely blank. No anger, no curiosity, no emotion at all. It was like there was nobody behind his eyes. I jerked backwards so hard, I slammed straight into the wooden wall behind me. "What the? Back up! What are you doing, I shouted. He didn't answer. He didn't even blink. He just slowly stood up, then turned around, walked to the open front of the shelter, and stopped. Right in front of the only way out. I just sat there. My heart felt like it was trying to punch through my chest. Then he bent down, reached into his pack, unclipped something from the side, and pulled it out. An axe. Not one of those little camping hatchets. A full-sized, tree-felling axe. Heavy steel head, long wooden handle. He slowly looked back at me, never taking his eyes off mine. Then, without warning, he swung it as hard as he could, straight into the wooden support post beside him. The sound echoed through the entire forest. He slowly pulled the axe back out, turned it in his hands, and just kept staring at me. At that moment, I only had one thought. If I stay here, this man is going to kill me. That was it. Nothing else mattered. My backpack was lying right beside me, about 30 pounds, I grabbed both shoulder straps and threw it as hard as I could, right at his face. It slammed into his chest, caught him completely off guard. He stumbled sideways, and the second he lost his balance, I ran. I bolted straight into the dark forest. I didn't grab my headlamp. I didn't even stop to put my boots on. I'd taken them off before bed. I was running in nothing but socks, over dirt, roots, sharp rocks, branches. I didn't care. I just kept running. I didn't stop until I couldn't hear anything behind me anymore. Then I finally stopped and listened. For a few minutes, nothing, not a sound. Then I heard him. He was walking through the trees, but he wasn't running. He was moving slowly, carefully, like he wasn't chasing me. He was hunting me. Every few steps, I'd hear it, the axe hitting the trunk of a tree, then silence. A few more steps, thunk, then his voice. Gerald, soft, almost gentle, like someone calling for a lost dog. Gerald, come on out. I was about 100 yards off the trail when I found a patch of thick, thorny brush. I forced my way inside, and I didn't move, not even once. For hours, I lay there, pressed against the cold ground, barely breathing, listening to him, walking through the forest. Sometimes, his footsteps sounded close, really close. Then they'd drift away. A few minutes later, they'd come back again. It went on like that until around 4:30 in the morning. Then, all at once, everything went quiet. I stayed hidden until the sun was fully up. I wanted to see every direction around me before I even thought about moving. Finally, I crawled out. I stayed parallel to the trail, moving through the trees, until I reached a road crossing, about 3 miles south. The first car that came by, I flagged it down. An elderly couple stopped. They didn't ask many questions. They just drove me to the nearest town. Once I got there, I went straight to the county sheriff's office. I told them everything. That same afternoon, park rangers went back to check the shelter, but the man was gone. His backpack, gone. The axe, gone. There wasn't a single trace that he'd ever been there, but the ranger I spoke to didn't seem surprised, not even a little. He told me there had already been 2 similar incidents along that same section of the Appalachian Trail within the last year. Both hikers described a man who looked exactly like the one I saw. One of them ran for his life and left all of his gear behind, just like I did. The other one was never found. He's still listed as a missing person. The last place anyone saw him was near mile marker 830, just 17 miles north of the shelter where I spent that night. I never stepped foot on the Appalachian Trail again, and honestly, I probably never will. My wife has never once said, "I told you so." She doesn't have to, but there's one thing I still can't stop thinking about. That night, when we sat by the fire, talking, he seemed completely normal. He knew exactly what to say, exactly how to act, how to make sure. I never questioned him. I'd spent 8 years hiking alone. I honestly believed I was good at reading people. I thought I could tell when someone wasn't right. I was completely wrong. So, if you ever decide to hike the Appalachian Trail alone, remember one thing: just because someone looks normal doesn't mean they are. And sometimes, the people you should fear the most are the ones who hide it the best.